Hello everybody and welcome back to Book Time. My name is Leah if you are new here, and I'm going to be going over my June wrap up. So for the month of June, I read quite a few books that were good and a lot that were just okay. I had a Survivor challenge going on, a reading challenge on my friend Gwen's Patreon, and it was so much fun, but you did have to kind of find books that fit the prompts that we had. And so sometimes I would end up choosing a book, and because of the time limitation, I might have gotten into the book and didn't love it, but continued on because I definitely wanted to get further in the challenge and not lose points or time. So I didn't really read books that I really wanted to sometimes, but I ended up just continuing on because I wanted to get to where I needed to be. That being said, the first book that I picked up was such a heavy hitter. It was Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, and I know everybody loves it so much, but I was not really in the mood to read a romance, and I picked it up because it was part of the Survivor challenge and it fit a prompt. And I ended up getting into it, and I got so far into it and I just wasn't loving it. And I know that's so disappointing to everyone, but I gave it a 3-star. I know, I can hear all the boos. So it follows a couple, Bree and Jacob. They work at the same hospital. They are both coming out of really intense situations with their past relationships. She's in the middle of a divorce, or she finished her divorce. I think it's finalized. And he's coming out of a relationship where his significant other fell in love with his brother. And so it's kind of sucky for him right now. He's also struggling with a lot of generalized anxiety disorder, and he doesn't really have anyone who fully understands what he's going through. In comes Bree, this amazing, vivacious woman who works at the hospital. She has a brother who is currently having kidney failure. He's going through a lot of difficult times, and she's stressed. She's going through a lot in her own personal life. And so the perfect cocktail, and they ended up like having all of the things that kind of like traumatically bring them together and make them they get into a relationship, and it just becomes such a sweet, perfect cocktail of sacrificing and giving into a relationship to where you're trying to understand someone at the highest level that you can. There's also a fake dating trope in it. I don't know. It just became a sweet story, but there were so many parts of it that just I just drudged through because it was part of what I was supposed to be doing for my challenge. And I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have. I felt like the story just fell flat for me. Although I did think that there were certain parts of it that really did shine. I don't know. It was just, to me, it wasn't anything super special. The next book that I read was Death by Dumpling by Vivian Shane. And this was such a great book. I gave it a 4-star. I loved it. It follows a family that has a Chinese restaurant, and they end up having this delivery man who accidentally delivers something he shouldn't to someone who has a food allergy, and a death occurs, and there's so much mystery around everything that's going on. He is also someone who is their landlord. So the story wraps up really cool, but it goes down all these like little side alleys to where you're like, who done it? And so I really thought it kept you guessing, it kept you on your toes, and it was just like a really fun book. And I love the cultural aspects where like the mother and the aunts are super involved in everything this girl's doing, and they're just like almost overbearing but in a loving, pushy way. And so I felt like it was a very great representation of the sweetness of family involvement in Asian cultures, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was so much fun. It made me laugh, and it also just endeared me to the characters. So I would say it was one of the better cozies that I have read. The next book I read was a buddy read. It was absolutely just the worst. It's Sprinkle with Murder by Jen McKinley. I don't even know. Here it is. It was awful. I thought it was written by like a 12-year-old. Like, I just didn't enjoy it. The writing was very empty. It was not descriptive. The storyline had so many different holes in it. The characters were very uninteresting. I just didn't like anything about this book. Don't read it, in my opinion. So there you go. The next book I got was actually an amazing book gifted to me by my bestie, Wendy. She was giving me a book, actually 2, because she was trying to make me feel better when I lost my uncle and things were really hard for me. And this book was Arsenic and Adobo. And this is by Mia Menensala. I think that's how you say it. But it was such a cute, cozy mystery around a Filipino restaurant. It kind of has the same storyline premise of Death by Dumpling in a way. except there are a little bit of things that are different. But basically someone gets poisoned by like rice or noodles. I forget exactly which one. And they start to kind of like come against this restaurant, come against this family. And that's like the last string, the last hope that this family has as far as their fortune and their life savings and everything. So this girl is like really sleuthing with a friend who is also a lawyer, trying to figure out how they can get around all of the accusations and how they can work together to figure out who done it. She also has a best friend who is the sister of the lawyer that she's working with, who is also an old flame. The next book I read was actually part of our book club pick by Gwen and her Patreon, and it was The Last Murderer at the End of the World, and this is by Stuart Turton. At first glance, I wasn't sure if I would like this book, and I got into it. I ended up giving it a 2-star, but then I went back and I ended up giving it a higher rating. It's a dystopian book about a small group of people who are the last survivors to survive what's called the fog. And this fog apparently like kills you. And so they have created this society to where they have everyone working together in this small island community to make sure that every person plays their part in keeping the fog away. And there's also really cool aspects to this story. It's unlike anything I've ever read. I can't even really describe it, but basically it poses a lot of questions for like morality and ethics and kind of like where our world is headed to, where I can't really spoil everything, but there is a very cool like sci-fi aspect, futuristic aspect to this, to where someone is developing something that is supposed to be better than what we have now. This book is literally so impossible to explain without spoiling it. I don't even know how to explain it without spoiling it, but basically people are working together with a lack of information. There are just a few people on the island that call themselves elders, but they're all knowledgeable and they know about how to prevent the fog from getting to them. And basically they're enslaving all these people to work together against the fog, and they're leaving out a lot of really important, pertinent information, and a lot of like dirty, dark secrets come out and bad motives, and it just kind of all blows up. And it's actually a really interesting, twisty story. I would say that this is probably unlike anything you have ever read. The next book I read was Next of Kin by Hannah Bonin Young. And the reason that I picked this book is because it talks about like Gilmore Girls in the beginning, but it was like nothing at all like that. And so I kind of don't even know why they put that in there. But it follows a girl who has been kind of abandoned by her mother, and she has a lot of hard feelings towards her mother. Well, then her mother in her later years ends up having a baby, and this baby, of course, is going to have the same kind of crappy life that she had with her mother who abandoned her. But before she abandoned her, she neglected and abused her. So she just kind of like goes in to try to take over the foster care of her younger sibling. Well, she can't do it alone, so she has to recruit the help of someone else. So they have this system to where if there are two people who want to foster a child, if they don't make enough money, they can live together, and then they could each foster the child that they want to, pulling their income and pulling their resources. So she ends up having a guy move in with her who is fostering his little brother. And they're living together, and of course it's kind of awkward because they're strangers and they don't know each other very well, but they end up like creating this really sweet bond. And then of course in a forced proximity trope, they end up falling for each other, and it's like, not like that's a spoiler, we knew that was going to happen, but there are a lot of obstacles along the way. It was a really cute story, but I just gave it 3 stars because it was extremely predictable and the characters weren't that interesting really, in my opinion. But I did give it a 3-star because I really liked the message that it was purporting, like you should take care of your own, and fostering is very important, and you know, never leave a family member behind. So for that reason, I gave it a 3-star. My biggest surprise read this month was one I didn't even really know about. It wasn't on my radar so much, but I had heard a friend's sister really liked it, and it's These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. The book was, in a word, sacrificial. Like, that's the only word I can really describe it with. There are so many beautiful aspects of this book where someone is sacrificing for someone else. And the ending was so poetic and gorgeous that I cried all the tears. And I just felt like this book was a really great, almost like a Christian read, because there were a lot of aspects of this book that kind of mirrored Christ. And so I just really enjoyed it. The beginning of the book, you're going to get in and be like, what was she talking about? Please read to the end. The ending was golden. It took a while to get there to where the ending was really impactful, but the story is also very sweet. And I would say that it is a slower paced book. So if you want something very fast, this ain't it, but it was really good and I did thoroughly enjoy it. The last book I read, and I just finished this a couple days ago, was One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. This book was crazy, y'all. I have not liked any of her newest stuff. Of course, I really love her. She's on my shelf. But I just was blown away by this book. It was so, so good. From start to finish, I was literally so enthralled with this book. Now, it took me a while to get through it because I really wanted to take my time. I love reality TV. I know, everyone's going to judge me. But I do. I love reality TV, and it was basically reality TV meets Agatha Christie meets Castaway. That's all I could describe it as. There are 10 contestants on this reality show. They're trying to find the perfect couple, basically a couple pairing that could survive and withstand any obstacles this island could throw at them. They're in the middle of someplace in Jakarta or near Jakarta, and they have been basically taken to this island that is so secluded, it takes you like 6 hours to get there by boat or something, I think. And so when they all get there, there's a lot of sketchy things that happen. They realize that not everything is as it seems. They were lied to about a lot of different things involving this reality TV show they are all supposed to be on. And the main character, who is someone who absolutely does not want to be there, she is like a scientist. She is going there to help out her significant other because he wants to be a famous actor. And he ends up not staying with her long. I'm not going to spoil everything that happens. But anyway, there is like a marooned on an island situation in this book, and it is like survival of the fittest. There's a controlling psychopath. There's just so many tropes that you're just like, oh my gosh, it was fabulous. I loved it to pieces, ate it up, 5-star. Good job, Ruth Ware. You had to come back. This is the end of my wrap up. I hope I didn't offend you with any of my ratings. I know everyone's gonna come at me for yours truly. It comes down to the fact that sometimes you read a book that is out of season and out of your emotional mood, and if it had fallen at a different time in your life, you would have loved it. However, that was my wrap up for June, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will consider hitting that subscribe button, and I would love to have chats about all the things books with you all the time. And if you have made it this far, go ahead and leave below what has been your favorite book in the month of June, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.